Welcome to KBN Sports Talk. It's March, so today I'm going to be going over my March Madness bracket with you. So I'm going to go through each region individually and pick which team is going to make it out of that region to the Final Four. And we're going to go from there. Okay, we're going to start with the West region with the number one overall team in the country, Gonzaga. Number one Gonzaga is going to play up against number 16 Norfolk State or App State. And I believe that App State's going to beat Norfolk State to get that 16th seed. And I believe that Gonzaga is going to beat App State. Next matchup, we have number 8 Oklahoma versus number 9 Missouri. This is a great game, but I believe that number 9 Missouri is going to beat number 8 Oklahoma. Then we have our first 5-12 matchup of the tournament, and I believe that number 5 pulls out and doesn't get upset, which is Creighton. Creighton's going to beat UCSB. Next, we have a 4 versus 13 matchup. Number 4 Virginia versus number 13 Ohio. I believe that Ohio is going to pull the upset and beat number 4 Virginia. And I know that's a big one. I know that a lot of people are predicting that, but I actually do see that happening. Virginia, we don't know what Virginia is going to be missing and what they're feeling after being taken out of the ACC tournament. We don't know how their health, all that. We don't know. Yes, they're cleared to play, but we don't know how they're doing mentally. And Ohio right now is on a tear, and I think they're going to beat them and upset them. Then we have number 6 USC versus number 11 Wichita State or Drake. They still have to play to see who gets that number 11 seed, but either way, either team, I believe USC is going to beat them. Next, we have number 3 Kansas versus number 14 Eastern Washington. I believe that number 3 Kansas is going to steamroll over Eastern Washington. Just believe it. Next, we have number 7 Oregon versus number 10 VCU. I believe that number 10 VCU is going to beat Oregon because Oregon is so inconsistent this year. They really are. And nobody really talks about them. Nobody really does. It seems like nobody really talks about the Pac-12 no more. Seems like they're a group of 5 now. Next, we have number 2 Iowa versus number 15 Grand Canyon. I believe that Iowa is going to beat Grand Canyon. Pretty easily. Yeah. Next, we go to the round of 32 in the West region, and I believe that number 1 Gonzaga beats number 9 Missouri and moves on to the Sweet 16. Now, to the next matchup, we have another upset, and it is number 13 Ohio beating number 5 Creighton to move to the Sweet 16, and they are the Cinderella story of this tournament. Next, we have number 6 USC versus number 3 Kansas. I believe that Kansas is going to beat USC and move on to the Sweet 16. Next, our last game in the round of 32 in the West region, we have number 10 VCU versus number 2 Iowa. I believe that number 2 Iowa is going to beat VCU in a very surprisingly close game. Now to our Sweet 16 in the West region. I have number 1 Gonzaga ending that Cinderella story of Ohio and moving on to the Elite 8. Our last game in the West region in the Sweet 16 is number 3 Kansas versus number 2 Iowa. And I believe that number 3 Kansas is going to beat number 2 Iowa to move on to the Elite 8. But I believe that Gonzaga is going to beat Kansas and make it to the Final Four. I believe that Kansas is going to be Gonzaga's first challenge in this tournament. And then they make it to the Final Four. Pretty easy road for Gonzaga, if you ask me. Now we go to the South region, which is led by number 1 Baylor. Baylor is playing up against number 16 seed Hartford. Hartford won their first conference championship this year, but then in the tournament, they ain't winning the NCAA tournament. I'm sorry. You're going up against number 1 Baylor. Number 1 Baylor is going to beat number 16 Hartford. Our next matchup is probably one of the best games in the round of 64, which is number 8 North Carolina versus number 9 Wisconsin. I believe North Carolina is going to pull off that win against against Wisconsin. And now to our second 5v12 matchup of the tournament, and I believe that we have the number 12 seed taking the win against Villanova, which is Winthrop beating Nova. I know a lot of people are saying stuff about this, but Villanova is missing its two biggest players. So I believe that they're going to do it. Winthrop is going to beat Nova. I believe that firmly. I really do. Then we have Purdue, number 4, versus number 13, North Texas. I believe that number 4, Purdue, beats North Texas and moves on to the round of 32 to play Winthrop. Our next matchup is number 6, Texas Tech versus number 11, Utah State. I believe that Texas Tech is going to beat Utah State and move on to the round of 32. Our next matchup is a lot of people are talking about, I'm seeing. It is number 3, Arkansas versus number 14, Colgate. I'm seeing a lot of people say that Colgate is going to beat Arkansas, but I don't see that happening. I see Arkansas beating Colgate and moving on to the round of 32 to play Texas Tech. Then we have our final 2 matchups of the round of 64 in the South region. And our first one is number 7, Florida versus number 10, Virginia Tech. I believe that number 10, Virginia Tech, is going to beat Florida and move on to the round of 32. Our last matchup is number 2, Ohio State versus number 15, Oral Roberts. I believe that Ohio State is going to just run over Oral Roberts, steamroll them. That's not going to be a close game. And then to our round of 32 games in the South region. I believe that number 1, Baylor, beats number 8, North Carolina, and moves on to the Sweet 16. Then we have number 12, Winthrop versus number 4, Purdue. I believe that number 4, Purdue, beats number 12, Winthrop, and moves on to the round of 16, or the Sweet 16. I am sorry. Then we have number 6, Texas Tech versus number 3, Arkansas. I believe that number 6, Texas Tech, beats number 3, Arkansas, and moves on to the round of Sweet 16. Next, our final matchup in the round of 32 is number 10, Virginia Tech versus number 2, Ohio State. I believe that Ohio State is going to beat Virginia Tech, and move on to play another Tech, which is number 6, Texas Tech, and I believe that Ohio State beats Texas Tech. And then we have number 1, Baylor versus number 4, Purdue. I believe that number 4, Purdue, beats number 1, Baylor, and moves on to the Sweet 16. And then we have our Elite 8 matchup in the South region, our last 2 teams, which is number 4, Purdue versus number 2, Ohio State. And I believe that number 2, Ohio State, is going to make it to the Final Four. A lot of people aren't saying that, but I believe that Ohio State is going to make it to the Final Four, because what they did against Illinois really did impress me. They brought them to overtime. That is very surprising. I thought they were going to get blown out, personally. I really did. So we have a Big Ten matchup. I didn't even notice. We have a Big Ten matchup in the South region for the Elite 8 to make it to the Final Four. So, I believe so we have our 2 teams right now in the Final Four, which is number 1, Gonzaga, and then we have number 2, Ohio State. Now to the East region, which is led by Michigan. Number 1, Michigan, is going up against MSN. I don't know who MSN is. If you can tell me in the comments, please tell me. But MSN is going to play against Texas Southern to see who gets the number 1 or gets the number 16 seed to play Michigan. But either way, Michigan's going to beat either team, whoever wins. Sorry, MSN and Texas Southern, y'all ain't going to beat Michigan. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to break it to you. And then we have number 8 LSU versus number 9 St. Bonaventure. I believe that number 8 LSU is going to beat St. Bonaventure and move on to play number 1 Michigan. Our next 5v12 matchup is number 5 Colorado versus number 12 Georgetown. And I believe that number 12 gets the victory again. Georgetown is going to beat Colorado and give the 5v12 matchup the 12 seed the lead this year so far. because we still have one more, and see who takes it. Is it going to be a tie, or is the 12 seed going to take it? We will see. Next, we have number 4 Florida State versus number 13 UNC Greensboro. I believe that Florida State is going to beat UNC Greensboro pretty handily. Pretty handily. Next, we have number 6 BYU versus number 11 Michigan State or UCLA. I believe that either Michigan State or UCLA is going to beat BYU. Yes, BYU was number 6, and they did give Gonzaga a run for their money, but I think Michigan State or UCLA is going to beat them. Next, we have number 3 Texas versus number 14 Albion Christian. I believe that number 3 Texas is going to beat Albion Christian pretty well. It's mine. Yeah, I think they're going to beat them pretty well. Next, we have a 7v10 matchup. Number 7 UConn is going to go up against number 10 Maryland. I believe number 7 UConn is going to beat Maryland and move on to the round of 32. And then our last round of 64 game in the East region is number 2 Alabama versus number 15 Iona. And I don't think Pitino can get it done against this Alabama squad, because Alabama this year they're pretty good. They really are. I've seen a lot of people, couple people doubting them, but they ain't got a team down there. Now we go to the round of 32 matchups. Number 1 Michigan versus number 8 LSU. I believe that number 1 Michigan goes down to number 8 LSU. LSU pulls off that upset and goes to the Sweet 16. Next, we have number 12 Georgetown versus number 4 Florida State. And I believe that Florida State is going to end Georgetown's Cinderella story. I believe that's where it ends in the round of 32 for Georgetown. I wanted to go farther. I wanted them to make it to the Final Four. I did. But their bracket, their region they're in, it was too challenging for them. I'm sorry. I think Florida State will end that Cinderella story. I know, it's sad, but it's okay. Then we have number 11 Michigan State or UCLA versus number 3 Texas. I believe number 3 Texas beats either of those two teams. Either, it don't matter. I just believe either of those two teams are going to get beaten by number 3 Texas. Then we have number 7 UConn versus number 2 Alabama. And I believe that number 2 Alabama beats number 7 UConn. Sorry, UConn. Maybe next year. Then we have number 8 LSU versus number 4 Florida State. I believe that number 4 Florida State beats LSU. And after seeing Shaquille O'Neal or Shaq's bracket today, that will end his bracket because he has LSU going all the way, which is kind of biased. He went to LSU. Then we have number 3 Texas versus number 2 Alabama. I believe that number 2 Alabama beats number 3 Texas and moves on to the Elite Eight in one of the final 2 teams in the East region. And then we have our last 2 teams in the East region. Number 4 Florida State versus number 2 Alabama. I believe that Alabama beats Florida State and moves on to the Final Four to play Gonzaga. Now we go to our last region, which is led by the Blazing Illinois. They're on a tear. I know their mascot's not blazing, but they're blazing through competition lately. Yes, they went to overtime against Ohio State, but still, they're still blazing, people. Now, number 1 Illinois is going up against number 16 Drexel. I believe that Illinois steamrolls Drexel. I'm sorry, Drexel, you're gonna get steamrolled. It's okay though. You guys at least got a conference championship. It's okay. You guys yeah, I'm sorry. Then we have number 8 Loyola Chicago versus number 9 Georgia Tech. Number 8 Loyola Chicago beats number 9 Georgia Tech. Yes, Georgia Tech is coming off of that big win in the ACC championship. Ooh, whoop-de-doo. They ain't gonna beat the Ramblers of Loyola Chicago and Sister Jean. They ain't beating them. Sister Jean won't have it. She'll go grab the ball and go score. Then we have number 5 Tennessee versus number 12 Oregon State. Oregon State is just like Georgetown. And I'm sorry, I didn't say this. We have our last final game against the 5v12s, and I believe that we end in a 5v12 tie. The 5 and 12 seeds will go 2-2 this year, because I believe Tennessee will beat Oregon State. I'm sorry, I couldn't say Oregon there. And then we go to the 4v13 matchup, which is number 4 Oklahoma State versus number 13 Liberty. And I believe that number 4 Oklahoma State is going to move on and play Tennessee in the round of 32. And then we go to number 6 San Diego State versus number 11 Syracuse, I believe. Syracuse beats San Diego State. I'm sorry, San Diego State. But Syracuse, when it comes to March Madness, they good. They good. Sorry. Then we go to number 3, West Virginia. If you ask Pat McCaffrey, it is the Huggy Bears of West Virginia. And I believe that West Virginia beats Morehead State and moves on to the round of 32. Then we have number 7, Clemson versus number 10, the Rutgers. The birthplace of football. I know this is basketball, but the birthplace of football. Fun fact. And I believe that number 10, Rutgers, the birthplace of football, beats number 7, Clemson, and moves on to the round of 32. They may be bad at football, but they are the birthplace of football. But they get to the round of 32 in college basketball. And then we have number 2, Houston versus number 15, Cleveland State. And number 2, Houston, they just beat Cleveland State. I can't even get hyped for that. It's not even a fun game. And then we go to the round of 32. Number 1, Illinois versus Sister Jean, Loyola Chicago. I'm sorry, Sister Jean, but AO is gonna beat Loyola Chicago and Sister Jean. I'm sorry, Sister Jean. You won't see another Sweet 16 this year. You'll get them next year, though. They're not this year. I'm sorry. Illinois, you ain't, no. Hey, it is March Madness. You could beat them, but I don't think so. And then we have number 5, Tennessee versus number 4, Oklahoma State. And people are saying Tennessee is gonna make a run in the March Madness in the tournament, but nah, Oklahoma State, Cade Cunningham ain't gonna let that happen. Is not gonna allow Tennessee to do that. Still, Oklahoma State moves on to the Sweet 16, and now we have probably an amazing matchup. Number 11 Syracuse versus number 3 West Virginia. We have the Huggy Bears versus the Oranges. Who will get it? I believe that the Huggy Bears will do it. Their squad this year has been, nobody's really been talking about it. I believe that the Huggy Bears will do it. And then we got number 10 Rutgers versus number 2 Houston. I believe that number 10 Rutgers, the birthplace of football, will move on to the round of Sweet 16 and play against the Huggy Bears. And then we have number 1 Illinois. We are in the Sweet 16 now. I'm sorry, I got a little bit too excited. And I forgot to say that, but we are in the Sweet 16 now. And we have our first matchup, which is number 1 Illinois versus number 4 Oklahoma State. And I believe that Illinois will beat Oklahoma State. And Cade Cunningham, you're an amazing player. You're probably going to be the number 1 pick. But I believe that Illinois will beat you guys. I am sorry to say that to you. And then we have the Huggy Bears versus the birthplace of college football, Rutgers. I believe that the Huggy Bears will move on to the Elite Eight in and will be the second team left in the Midwest region. And then we have our Elite Eight, which is the last 2 teams in the Midwest region, and which is number 1 Illinois versus number 3 West Virginia. And I believe that the number 1 team in the Midwest region will go and beat the Huggy Bears. I just think Illinois can't be beaten in that region. I just think they can't. And we will have a rematch of the Big Ten Championship in the Final Four. And which will be Ohio State versus Illinois in the Midwest. Coming out of the Midwest will be Illinois. Coming out of the South region is Ohio State. Coming out of the West region is Gonzaga. Coming out of the East region is number 2 Alabama. We have a 1-2-1-2. And I believe that Illinois will keep that game and beat Ohio State again. And then I have one of the biggest upsets. I have number 1 in the country, Gonzaga, losing to Alabama in the Final Four. And then our winners, it will be the national championship. We have number 2 Alabama versus number 1 Illinois. Who will it be? Well, I gotta tell you, it's gonna be Illinois. Illinois will be your national champion this year. I could be totally wrong. More than likely am. But I think Alabama versus Illinois will be the final two. And my score, I think it's probably not going to be defensive, so I'm going to go 78 to 86. I think Illinois is going to put that much up. Yes, I said it. That is my bracket, you guys. I say Illinois is the winner. And as you can see, congratulations, your picks have been saved. I picked Illinois to cut the Nets down in Indianapolis. Tell me what you guys think. If I'm wrong, if I'm right, probably wrong. But that's what I believe. I believe that Illinois, the Fighting Eli of Illinois, are going to win and cut the Nets down in Indianapolis. Let me know down in the comments. See you next time. This is KBM Sports. I'm Kevin.